Rise and crime, everybody. I'm Rachel Souza.
And I'm Michelle Chan.
And welcome back to another week. If you're still here, thank you. You've gotten to the 5th week.
Yeah, you're a real trooper.
Please continue. Today we've got a long, big case and a short case.
Yeah, that's about right.
Okay, start us up, I guess.
All right, so on October 6, 2014, in Surrey, British Columbia, a teen crashed his vehicle into another car driven by an 85-year-old driver and then fled the scene.
Oh, that's sad. Why are you telling me a sad one?
Because
it's supposed to be funny ones.
I mean, it gets stupid. Okay. So 2 young men heard the crash and they chased the teenager and eventually caught him and brought him back to the crime scene.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Good for them. This is when the teenager grabs a bag of money, a bloody bag of money, out of his car and hands it to a woman nearby and just asks her to hold it for him and then asks for her number so that he could go get it back later. And she almost agreed, okay? But the people around them, the other witnesses, were like, don't do that. That's a bad idea.
That's okay. Why would she even consider it?
I don't know. Maybe she just wanted the bag money.
Okay, but here's what I want to know. Is the 85-year-old man okay?
Oh, yeah, he's fine,
Okay, good.
Don't worry. Just minor injuries.
Okay, sick.
He's not dead. It's all good.
That's what matters.
Yes. So then the police recovered the bag of money, as well as a small amount of marijuana and 5 different cell phones. Sketchy.
You got 5 phones.
Yes, so that's my entire story. So the teen has been released since, but will face several driving and drug-related charges.
Wow. I like how these 2 teens that chased him down, they didn't, take him to the police station. They brought him back to the crime scene.
Maybe that's where the police were.
Oh, okay. That's so silly.
Yeah, wow. I don't know. I thought that was
silly.
Stupid.
It is silly.
Who just has, a bag of money? Oh, that's so dumb. Can you hold this for me?
Yeah, and this girl's like, KK, LOL. Like, what?
What?
Okay, so this case, it's about the Shafia family. It's a pretty big case. A lot of people have heard it before. I had heard it before, but I'd never done research into it. And wow,
I don't know anything about this.
That's good, because it's wild.
Okay,
it's really long. So buckle up, everybody. Here we go. So Mohammed Shafia, born in Kabul in the early 1950s. Which is in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
And he grew up pretty typically in Afghanistan. He didn't finish 7th grade, though, so he wasn't very educated, but he was a gifted entrepreneur. So he was very gifted in starting up businesses and running them. Mm-hmm. So he got married in 1979 to Rona Amir. She was actually infertile, so she was not able to have children. Mm-hmm. And even they went to India for fertility treatments. They did everything they could because they really, really wanted children. And this made Muhammad very angry. So he started to bully Rona, to just pick on her all the time and just make her feel absolutely horrible about the fact that she couldn't bear kids. So eventually she got so fed up. She was like, go find another wife if you want kids because I clearly cannot give them to you. Mm-hmm. So then he was like, okay, let's do that. So Rona went and found Muhammad another wife. Her name was Tuba.
Oh.
So Muhammad was 34 and Tuba was 17 when Rona brought her to him, and then they became a nice family of 3.
Okay, wait, but how did Rona and Tuba know each other before?
She was the sister of a relative of hers, or a friend's relative, something like that. So they became a nice family of 3, which means polygamy. Wow. Fantastic.
Thrupples. Love them.
Love them. Okay. In 1989, Tuba gave birth to their first daughter, Zainab. And then the next year, she gave birth to a son, Hamid. And Rona was starting to feel like she was being separated from this family. She felt that Tuba was trying to, kick her out and, get rid of her so she could have Muhammad all to herself. Mm-hmm. But then in October of 1991, they had their third child, Sahar. Third child, second daughter, Sahar. And Tuba actually gave Sahar to Rona to raise as her own, to try to, make her feel better, I guess. Mm-hmm. But instead, she did this, and Rona thought, oh, it's great. It's to make me more part of a family. But really, she was using this to get Muhammad further from Rona by being like, look, I did this nice thing. Now you can love me more and not her, you know? So eventually, they were living in Kabul, and the Afghanistan civil war started moving into their city and became unsafe for them to be there. So they fled to Pakistan. And that's when Tuba had their fourth child. And their fourth child's name is not released due to a publication ban. So I'm just going to refer to this child. It was a daughter. I'm going to refer to her as child 4.
Okay.
And then...
Wait, sorry. How old is Tuba?
She's 20 at this point. So they gave birth to child 4, a daughter. And then a year later, they had a fifth child whose name is also unreleased due to a publication ban. So I will be referring to that child, which was a son, as child 5. And then a year after, they had their sixth child.
There's so many children.
There's so many children. Their sixth child, GT Shafia, was born right after. And then they all moved to Dubai.
How come they can release that name?
You'll see. So they moved to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. Muhammad started this new business that really, really popped off. So they were making tons and tons of money. And in Dubai is an Islamic country, and their family was of Islam faith, and they really had and Muhammad enforced really strict customs and culture onto their family, having to do with the Islamic faith. So they didn't want them to associate with outsiders. They didn't want to talk to them about other people. They were very, very strict about what they could wear, what they could, who they could date, and stuff like that. But in Dubai, the children were first subjected to more American culture because they were sent to an American private school where they learned to speak English and just more American cultures. And then Tuba had her final child, whose name was also unreleased, so I will refer to that child as child 7.
Okay.
I can't remember if that was a son or a daughter. I'm sorry, world. So basically, at this point, they were all just pretty living lavish. Tuba was learned to drive. She was buying as much gold as she wanted. That's what the article said. And they decided that they really wanted to move out of Dubai. So they were looking for their next destination. They tried New Zealand, but Rona, who is still living with them as another parent, failed the medical tests in order to enter New Zealand. So then they lived in Australia for a while, but they were forced out due to visa complications. So they were only there for a year. So they moved back to Dubai. And then finally in 2007, they immigrated to Quebec, specifically Montreal, under the Immigrant Investor Program, which basically is Quebec will grant you an immigration visa if you pay them $400,000.
Oh.
That number has now currently upped to $800,000, but back in this time, so 2007, it was $400,000.
Damn.
And you have to remember that this family is so rich. They, right when they got there, he bought a entire strip mall in Laval, Quebec, that was valued at $2 million. And they bought a new Lexus SUV, and they began to build a $900,000 mansion.
Wow. Don't they need many SUVs for their 7 children, 2 wives, and husband?
You'd think. Well, I mean, less cars means they can't get away from the family, right?
True. I just don't think one is sufficient.
I don't think so either. But so while they were waiting for this $900,000 mansion to be built, they were renting a smaller house, and it was reported that this house was like a prison.
Wait, $900,000 mansion?
And it was not that much.
That's very little.
That's what I thought too. Because houses, regular suburban homes go for $1 million these days.
What year is this?
It's 2007.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah, housing market was probably a lot cheaper than now, that's for sure. Well, it was a big deal back then.
Okay.
Well, they just bought a $2 million strip mall. Give them some leeway.
True.
So while they were waiting for this mansion to be built, they were renting out a smaller house, and it was reported to be a prison. So Muhammad's greatest worry was the children bringing shame onto the family. He just didn't want any shame on the family. He wanted to keep the honor within, And he just really didn't want them talking to, like, outsiders, basically. When they moved to Quebec, they weren't able to bring Rona because polygamy is illegal in Canada. So Rona actually was in Europe staying with a relative at this point. But then 6 months into them living in Quebec, they were able to bring her over, saying that she was Mohammed's cousin.
Oh.
And then they just kept their polygamous household a secret from the government, obviously. Mohammed spent most of his time on business in Dubai. So he actually only spent 6 months in Canada, like in Quebec. Most of his time was in Dubai working. And when he was gone, it was said that Hamid would enforce the house rules. So he was like the father while Mohammed was gone. And he was just as strict as his father. He would enforce it using physical force as well as verbal attacks. So they were very much the same, like father, like son.
Yeah. So they did not have a cooler older brother.
No, they did not.
No, they just got a second father.
So, they started going to school in Quebec, and Zainab met this boy named Wahid. He was of Pakistani descent, which was totally against her father's rules. And one time, while her father was on business, she brought him over to the house.
Was it against his rules because she's not supposed to date or not supposed to date anyone that's not from Afghanistan?
Not anybody. Or he
Both?
wasn't Islamic.
Okay.
He wasn't of Islam faith.
But she could date.
I don't think she could date either. It didn't really say. It made it very clear that because he was Pakistani, it was a big issue.
Okay.
And she thought Hamid wasn't home, so she brought him over, and Hamid was home, saw him, kicked him out, and banished Zainab to her room, and she was not allowed to return to school, and she was not allowed to leave the house without another relative for 10 months.
Whoa.
10 months.
Maybe she could have gone to his house instead.
Really, right?
Yeah, like, that seems
Actually,
risky.
later on, you find out that Wahid's parents were actually against them dating as well, because she was not Pakistani.
I see.
So it was very, like both,
Romeo Juliet.
literally. So, in this household, children 4 and 5, so the daughter and the son, who are not named, well, they're named, we're just not allowed to name them. Well, I don't know their names. Publicity's not allowed to name them. I'm digging myself a hole. So children 4 and 5 were known as the Tattletales.
It's so funny when you refer to them as children 4 and 5. It's like a Dr. Seuss thing.
But I don't want to give them names. Like, I don't want to be like Steve and Jenny. Like, that's just not...
Their names were definitely not Steve and Jenny.
I know, but I just don't want to give them names. I'd rather just refer to them as children 4 and 5.
No, it's fine.
So children 4 and 5 were known as the Tattletales for the parents. So they would keep the customs, and anytime any of their siblings would do something outside of like what the parents enforced, they would tell on them. So that's just something to keep in mind. For example, Sahar was at school, kissed a boy, and child 4 told the parents.
Child 4, I'm sorry. It's so funny.
I don't know what else to say. Child 4, she did. She told the parents. And Tuba freaked out and went to the school and freaked out on the teachers, saying, keep Sahar away from boys. And Sahar was already depressed from living in this household, in this torturous household. And this drove her to attempt suicide. So she took one of those silicone packs that you find in like bags to keep things fresh. And she mixed it with water and drank it. And GT, who is her younger sister, was freaking out trying to save Sahar and like help her like get it out of her system. And she told her mom, she told Tuba, she was like, Sahar is trying to kill herself, like help her. And Tuba said, and I quote, she can go to hell, let her kill herself.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
What an awful mother.
Awful, awful, awful. And it was because her kissing a boy had brought shame onto the family, so she was like, just, she can go to hell, which is...
Ugh. Oof. Disgusting.
And Sahar survived drinking the poisonous substance. So she actually lived, but now she had to live knowing that her mom had said that and everything. So Sahar finally went to the school's authority and told them, she was like, I live in this household, I'm suicidal, I need help. And so they called child services. The DPJ is what they called. I'm just going to refer to it as child services because I don't want to mess up. So they called child services, and she told them everything, and she told them that, like, how upset she was. But then they said that they were going to call her home because that's, like, customary practice for child services. And then she said she took back everything. She was like, nope, none of this is true. I'm actually fine. I want to go home.
Oh.
So they had to call the house anyways, of course, because that's what you have to do. And then the house, like, Tuba picked up and was obviously livid that she had told on, like, them, basically, right? But then Sahar, like, the child services came back the next day to their school, and Sahar was like, no, I just want to go home. I'm fine. Like, everything's fine. I was being dramatic, basically, is what she said to them. I take everything back. So child services closed the case.
Oh.
Yeah.
I feel like you should still investigate.
I feel like you should still investigate, too. If somebody's...
Yeah, because, like, what if someone's threatening you after they find out, and then you're just more endangered now?
Which is basically exactly what is happening.
Which is exactly what happens every time.
And it's just so upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
So upsetting. So basically after that, the home got even worse for everyone because they were so mad about this. And Rona was getting even more bullied by both Muhammad and Tuba now, and she wanted to leave as well. But Muhammad had actually said to her, if you leave, I will kill you.
Oh.
So things were just super violent. And so Zainab finally turned 19, and they finally lifted this ban that they had on her from when she was dating Wahid. So she started sneaking out to see Wahid once again. And then Sahar also started dating a man named Ricardo Sanchez. I'm just going to refer to him as Sanchez. And they would sneak out together to go see their boyfriends all the time. GT is now 13, and she became even more rebellious than her sisters. So because she didn't even try to hide it, she would speak out about how much she hated the home and hated her parents. And one time she was at the mall and she shoplifted from Walmart. And then they got home and her dad was so angry he like beat her up quite badly. And then Zainab couldn't bear seeing this abuse anymore, so she actually ran away.
Oh my god.
So after seeing her 13-year-old sister get beat up, she was like, I'm out of here. And she escaped to a women's shelter.
Whoa. Maybe they should have stopped at one child. There's less chance of shame on the family.
Well, now they got 7.
Yeah.
So she escaped to a women's shelter. This was during the day, like the next day. And the other children, all 6 of them, had heard at school of what just happened. So they were terrified to go home, knowing that their sister had just run away and how mad her parents were going to be. Their parents were going to be. There's 7 of them. So they actually went to a stranger's house and called 911, trying to like tell police what's going on. And Hamid, who was home at the time, also called 911, reporting Zainab as missing. But Hamid just wanted her home so he could get mad at her, not really so he could
save her.
So the police met up with the children who had called 911 and they interviewed them, and Sahar and GT told the police everything again, just being like, we are being abused at home and everything. But children 4 and 5 actually didn't say anything. They were just like, no, everything's fine.
Whoa. I guess because they're always the tattletale. So
they're the tattletale, so they're respected by the parents.
Yeah, so they
don't get abused. So then once again, child services were called, but they decided that it was safe to leave the kids at home for the weekend and they could reevaluate after the weekend. Like they could interview them again. So the following Monday, once again, children 4 and 5 recanted everything. They were like, nope, none of this is true. Don't worry. But GT was like begging the police to put her in foster care. They were just begging to be out of that house. So child services conducted an investigation, and they decided everything was fine and closed the case.
Excuse me?
Which,
oh my god.
sucks.
If even one child feels like they are being abused, you should probably
look into it further. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just feel
especially if this is the second time they're coming to you.
It's the third time.
Sorry, third time.
It's ridiculous. So soon after this incident, Zainab is still out. She's still at the women's shelter. Rona overheard Muhammad speaking to Hamid and Tuba, and he said that he wanted to kill Zainab and the other one. Air quotes. It was just... So Rona believed that she was the other one, and she became terrified. So she was calling her relatives, being like, hey guys, I heard Muhammad say he's trying to kill me. Like, please help. And her relatives were like, you're fine. You're not in Afghanistan. You're in Canada. Nothing's gonna happen. Safest country. Which is like, murder happens everywhere. Yeah. Like, yes, it is safer than other countries.
Yeah.
But
still,
if somebody's still threatening to kill you, you should still take some concern. So Zainab finally reached out to Tuba, and Tuba said to Zainab that if she came home, she could get married to Wahid.
What a weird bait.
Well, I think it's because they now Tuba knows that Muhammad wants to kill Zainab, so she's just trying to get Zainab home. Mm-hmm. So she said, if you come home, you can marry Wahid. So Zainab's like, yeah, sounds pretty good.
Do they care about their children at all?
No, clearly no. Like, clearly no.
That's so awful.
It's all about keeping up that family, like, no shame on the family, keeping up honor. So at this point, Muhammad has gone to Dubai on business again, and to do some research on how he's going to murder his daughter. So Tuba comes home, and on May 1st, 2009, and her and Wahid begin to plan their wedding. Mm-hmm. And Tuba decides she wants to go back on what she said, and she wants Zainab to back out of this wedding. But Zainab's like, no, I need to be free from this family. I need to be married, which is so valid. Mm-hmm. So at this point, Muhammad is getting desperate to get Zainab out of here because he doesn't want this wedding to take place either. Mm-hmm. So he calls a family friend named Javid, and Javid lives in Sweden. So he asks Javid to invite the family to Sweden on vacation, and they would picnic near water, and he would just throw Zainab in.
Can she swim?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Javid, horrified, hangs up the phone and is like, heck no, I'm not doing that.
He hangs up the phone and then tells him he's not doing that.
Yes, in that order. And then Javid calls Tuba and is like, hey, you should beware. Your husband's trying to kill your daughter. And Tuba's like, oh, thanks for letting me know. As if she doesn't already know.
Wow.
So then Javid thinks everything's fine. He's like, oh, okay, I warned them.
Okay, but warn the police.
Well, he did not do that. He warned the wife. So May 18th, Zainab gets married.
Okay.
To Wahid. And she's so happy, but no one showed up to the wedding because no one approved. Not Wahid's family.
It's just those
not
two.
The Shafia family. No one approved. But Tuba was there. But Tuba was so horrified that she passed out, and they couldn't wake her. So Zainab threw herself at her mother and said, and I quote, if you do not agree, I will reject this boy. So Tuba clearly was like, I do not agree. So Zainab, 24 hours after being married, asks Wahid for a divorce.
That's so sad.
So sad. She was just free. She had 24 hours of freedom. And she asks him for a divorce. So this whole wedding situation brought so much shame onto their family because it was very public. And they're trying to fix everything they can. So they rearrange another marriage for Zainab to an Afghanistan man. Mm-hmm. No, that's not right. To a man of Afghani...
Afghanistan man.
So they rearrange another marriage for Zainab to marry a family friend who is of Afghani descent. But that marriage is not happening yet. But it's just like set up to be that way. So later on, Sahar was found in a bar hugging her boyfriend Sanchez, and child 5, remember there's child 4, 5, and 7?
I do remember.
Never forget children 4, 5, and 7. So child 5 actually walked in and saw Sahar in the bar hugging her boyfriend, and as we know, child 5 is the one who rats on the girls to the parents. So ratted on her, and Sahar got in so much trouble. So this led to Hamid leaving to Dubai to meet his father, who was traveling there already, and telling him what's happening. So they further planned the murder plot. At the same time, GT was starting to get more rebellious, and Hamid and Muhammad decided that they were going to kill her too. So now they want to kill Zainab, Sahar, and GT, all 3 of the sisters.
Okay, so now the parents want to kill 3 of their kids.
3 of their kids.
All right.
So June 13th, Muhammad comes home and forgives Zainab for her whole marriage debacle, but decides to cancel her cell phone plan. He's like, no more for you. And later on, you'll see why he did this. Mm-hmm. But he's just like, yeah, your punishment is no cell phone.
Sorry, how old is she again?
She's the eldest sister. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I literally don't remember.
That's fine.
Okay.
20-something.
She's 20-something. I'm sorry. If you guys can fact check me if you want. That's fine. Okay, so June 22nd, Muhammad rents a Nissan Sentra and tells the family that they're going on summer vacation. Mm-hmm. So he didn't tell them where. He didn't give them any details. He was just like, come on, guys, pack your bags. We're going.
Okay.
And they were like, okay, vacation. We never do this, but sounds good. So they piled into the Nissan and the Lexus and they started driving. So luckily, Sahar, the middle sister, her cell phone was still intact and she was a crazy texter to her boyfriend. So they would text like non-stop. So that way they were able to track their exact vacation because she would ping off every single cell tower they would go by because she'd be sending so many texts.
Convenient.
It was convenient. So they know exactly where this family traveled. Mm-hmm. So they started their trip, and a day later they made it to Grand Ramu, and they stayed in a motel for the night there. Then they went south to Ottawa, west to Brockville and Gananoque, all on the 401, and it creates this big, like, horseshoe. Mm-hmm. So they did, like, a really weird trip, almost. So on the 24th, so 2 days after they left, Sahar's phone pings a tower in Kingston Mills, so Kingston, Ontario. But it's a lock, so it's this water part on the Rideau Canal in Kingston. And she pings a cell tower, like, right there. So finally, the next day, June 25th, they arrive in Niagara Falls.
All right.
And they stay there for 4 days. They have a regular vacation. There's photos of them there having a good time. And yeah, they were like, wow, this is great, an actual vacation. Interesting.
Do they normally not go on vacation?
No, not normally. So this was like weird, and they like had fun and like got dressed up. And I like was looking through their photos, and there was like nice selfies of like Sahar and Rona together, and they're all like, yeah.
That's so sad.
It is so sad. And they showed these selfies in like court and stuff after. Spoiler. Anyways, so June 29th, they check out of their hotel at Niagara Falls at 8 p.m. and they start driving towards Toronto. Mm-hmm. So they drive through Toronto, through Ajax, all the way back to Kingston, where they stop and find a motel at 1:36 in the morning. So on what is now June 30th. So they get to this motel, and the hotel staff, as they do, or a motel, sorry, asks Mohammed, how many people are you staying with? So remember, this is Mohammed, his 2 wives, Tuba and Rona. There's Zainab, Sahar, GT, and Hamid, and then children 4, 5, and 7. So 10 people, right?
Wait, in one car?
No, they're taking the Nissan and the Lexus.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So he gets to the motel, and they're like, how many people? And he says 6.
Mm-hmm.
So, yikes, first of all. So after that, they drove over to a lock, and to the lock where Sahar's phone pinged again, the same tower that earlier she had set off. Mohammed had gone to check into the motel, whilst Tuba and then Rona, Zainab, Sahar, and GT were already at this like lock area waiting to see which motel he found, and children 4, 5, and 7 were dropped off at the motel, so they were already in for the night sleeping.
Okay.
So Mohammed and Hamid leave the motel and go meet them at this lock where they think that they're going to get brought over to the motel. And it is at this lock that Tuba, Mohammed, and Hamid drown Zainab, Sahar, Rona, and GT, put them into the Nissan Sentra, drive the Nissan Sentra to the very edge, and then use the Lexus to push it over into the canal.
How did they drown them?
They literally held them in the water.
That's so awful.
Drowned them, and then put them into the car, and then pushed the car, using the other car, off the ledge into the canal. Mm-hmm. Killing them. So it finally happened. Their murder plot went through, and they added Rona into the mix.
Just for fun? Because
he was, like, done with her not trusting him and being so sad and trying to escape and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they killed their whole family, or a lot of their family, which is so horrible. So horrible. The Lexus was now wrecked from hitting, well, not wrecked, just, like, minorly messed up in the front for hitting the Nissan into the canal, as a Lexus would be. So their plan was that Hamid was going to drive all the way back to Montreal, stage an accident in a parking lot, like he hit a pole, and that's how the car got wrecked, and then like call the police, and then drive all the way back to Kingston in their Pontiac to pick up the family. So he did it exactly that. He drove to Montreal and Kingston back in the same night, met them back at the motel. They woke up in the morning, and they went to police being like, hey, we have 4 people of our family missing. Like, they came into our room last night around, like, 2 to take the car on a joyride, but they never came back, and we don't know where they are. Mm-hmm. At this point, police had already found the car in the lock, because a Parks Canada employee actually saw it floating at the top and saw, like, car parts.
Yeah.
So they'd actually already pulled the Sentra out of the canal. So they had already, like, seen that there was 4 women in this car dead, and then these people are coming in and saying, hey, we're missing 4 women in our family. They put 2 and 2 together and informed Mohammed, Tuba, and Hamid that their family was dead.
So did the husband and the wife just, like, kill off everybody, like, one by one?
Kind of. And the brother. The brother was very much a part of it.
Oh.
Hamid.
Oh, true.
The eldest brother.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So the police told them that their family was dead. And at 3:45, so what happened? That was at noon. So 3 hours and 45 minutes later, they brought them all in for interviews. And not a single speck of sadness was seen in them at all.
Okay.
Like, by the time this interview, they were like, we're fine. And, like, yes, everybody grieves differently. You hear this in every true crime thing. But, like, not even one of them.
Like, they didn't even
sad.
plan to fake it.
And, like, none of them. Not even the mother of her own children. So they were totally normal. In this interview, all the family members were saying, oh, these girls often stole the car and went on these joy rides. Like, this was a regular occurrence.
Mm-hmm.
Hamid was also, they just basically denied everything. They were like, we don't know anything. It was all an accident. We're devastated. Just sitting there, we're devastated. Like,
We're so sad.
What a terrible,
We're so
tragic
sorry for
accident.
our loss.
But what they didn't know is that police had a witness.
Uh-huh.
Which, okay, this part to me is so weird. Because the witness is an 8-year-old boy. But this happened at, like, 3 in the morning. Why is there an 8-year-old boy out at the canal at 3 in the morning? Why was he the only witness? Like, where are your parents?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
That's a little sketchy.
But an 8-year-old boy had told police 2 cars were at the water's edge. Only the bigger one drove away, is what he said.
How did they find this 8-year-old boy?
Like, literally. Like,
what?
Excuse me? So that part makes really not a lot of sense to me, but every article was saying that he was their witness, so okay. But, like, it was 3 in the morning. The autopsy of the bodies showed that there was peculiar bruises on the girls' heads as if they had been knocked out first.
Okay.
And then put into the car, which is likely what happened. They were likely knocked out, then drowned, then put into the car.
Mm-hmm.
So they were kind of like, investigators were like, maybe this wasn't an accident. Maybe we should be questioning these people a little bit harder. And then their investigation started to turn into, like, a homicide focused on Mohammed, Tuba, and Hamid when they started doing investigation of the family and seeing all these child service reports that had been filed and all the trouble that had been found from the schools and everything like that. Mm-hmm. So they started looking into them more, and it turned into a homicide file. Because, okay, the main reason it was changed to a homicide case was the investigators found plastic at the scene where the car was pushed in. They found, like, plastic, and they actually were able to tape it together to the Lexus to form an exact puzzle. So, like, the pieces fit exactly into the Lexus, like, where the damage was, and they realized that, hey, this Lexus has plastic all over here. We should start looking into this. Mm-hmm. So police decided to wiretap the family's minivan. So they decided this was the best way to get information. Mm-hmm. And they caught so many things. They caught the family discussing that there was no cameras where the canal was. They caught Mohammed cursing his dead daughters and calling them whores and just being, like, so happy that they're dead.
Oh my god.
They caught the family just discussing, like, they don't know, right? No, they have nothing. Like, they just caught them saying so many incriminating things. Mm-hmm. But the family never explicitly said, we drowned them, we pushed the car off, you know? They never actually said that. And at one point, Hamid was actually caught saying, hey, we should be careful. You know they can bug us.
Oh
which
my
is
God.
really silly.
Is that enough evidence?
They caught that with a bug. Okay. Yes, it was enough evidence to, on July 21st, the children 4, 5, and 7 were removed from the home. Mm-hmm. And days later, they were arrested and charged, but they all pled not guilty. Mm-hmm. So it had to go into this long, twisted trial. And I just want to add this in because I think it's really badass. There was a police officer in BC who was, like, a homicide expert, and he actually spoke, like, the same language that they spoke, so he was able to translate. Mm-hmm. And they parachuted him in from BC, and I just think that's so badass.
Wow. Wow. Imagine being that important.
They parachute you in. Anyways, I just thought that was silly. So they all plead not guilty. This trial begins, and I'll just give you some highlights of this trial and the interrogations. because it was long and there was so much information, and this is already a long story. But basically, Kid 5, so the Tattletale kid, the main one, he testified in court, and he went up and said, no, our family's perfect. My sisters were liars. They were saying everything they were saying because they wanted attention and popularity. I was the one who did the computer searches of how to commit murder and stuff because I was suicidal and I didn't know the word suicide and I thought murder was the same thing. And he just, like, was going off with these lies, trying to defend his parents.
Yeah, did the parents tell them to lie?
Nope, they did that on their own free will.
They groomed them well.
Oh, yes. And the parents just went up on the stand and were just, like, denying everything, saying, I love my or the mother would just go up and be like, those are my children. How dare I kill my own children? And, well, we all know she did, so it's just kind of messed up that she was saying that. Mm-hmm. And the father went up on the stand, and this is so silly. He over and over said, yes, my daughters deserve to die, and I'm so glad they're dead. But I didn't kill them, guys. Don't worry. He, on the stand, said, I'm so glad they're dead. But it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Excuse me?
I know. Isn't that so
That's
stupid?
so stupid.
You're literally telling everybody you did it. That's enough.
I'm glad it happened, but I didn't do it.
Yeah, and he would just say that. And he admitted on the stand that they were whores.
Okay.
And, like...
yes, I did say that. Because they are.
But I didn't kill them. I didn't kill them, I promise.
That's awful.
So the prosecutors had 2 key witnesses. They had a collision expert who was able to prove that the Lexus pushed the Nissan over the edge. And they had this lady who was a professor at the University of Toronto. And she basically just studied, like, patriarchal culture. Mm-hmm. And she basically just said, it's not based on religion. That's a huge disclaimer in this. This is not representative of the religion. This is not what it is. It's an extreme case of somebody who believes that women should be suppressed based on sexuality and stuff like that. It's not about
just misogyny.
It's yes, completely. So she basically came in and said, regardless of your religion, this guy believes that if his women, gross. If the women of his family do things that are in his idea dishonorable, that it brings shame onto him, and that she basically just proved his mindset and basically just showed the jury how he was thinking, and this is why he did it. And she was completely right. Mm-hmm. During the trial, it was said that all 3 of them, Hamid, Tuba, and Mohammed, thought that they were going to get away with it, and they were so cocky and arrogant. Everybody reported that they were arrogant throughout the whole thing. Tuba and Mohammed, like, they were dumb. Usually you shouldn't go on the stand.
Yeah.
If it's because cross-examination will kill you. And they went up on the stand because they were so arrogant that they were going to get away with it. Like, it's so dumb.
What psychopaths.
So, of course, the jury found them guilty. All 3 of them were sentenced to life in prison with a chance of parole after 25 years. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, that's the story of the Shafia family murders.
So remember, if you have a big bag of money, probably don't hand it to strangers.
And if you think you're being wiretapped, you probably are.
Goodbye.
Peace out.